day. Come and drive my blues away. When you come, be ready to play. Do your duty. If you want to have some luck, give your baby your last buck. Don't come quacking like a duck. Do your duty. I heard you say.
Hello, hello, hello,
I don't believe
and welcome,
a word they
fellow
say.
citizens and students of the Sasquatch species, all across North America and wherever else in the world they call home. I'm your host, Christopher Noel, coming to you live from Vermont's Northeast Kingdom. I am very excited to have you here for our second live episode, second of hundreds, I hope, perhaps thousands before we get this thing done. I am waiting on our guest, Claudia Ackley, to resume where she left off last week. Let's see, comments, here we go. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Glad to see you. Claudia, when we last spoke with her before technical difficulties intervened, she was explaining how she and her two daughters, one 14, one I think 11, perhaps 9, were walking on a trail near her house, near their house, in March of 2017, I want to say. And they were confronted by not one, not two, but 3 Sasquatch, 2 of which were juveniles, and ran past her daughter, who she saw turn and look at them, but didn't see. Claudia, didn't see the juveniles herself. But then all 3 saw a very large male Sasquatch right dead in front of them, and they were completely freaked out. And this experience has been life-changing for Claudia and has set her on a course of confronting the government of the state of California. And it's been a long, strange trip since then. And I hope that she will be able to fill us in a bit more from the point that we left off last week. Now, while we wait for her, I will put up this banner that I will occasionally use. Time for questions. Good night from the Netherlands. Hello, everyone from Vermont. Well, I don't know how many Vermonters are watching this. Trying to take a pee, somebody said, with your phone on the countertop. Trying to read the comments isn't easy. Well, Sasquatch strategies, I think we can all relate to that little tidbit. Chris, you are the perfect spokesman for us. Well, I appreciate that, Patrick McGuire. I'm just doing my level best here in my little corner of the world up in northern Vermont. There's so much to talk about. I'm personally working on 2 tracks. One is the research track that I've been on for 14 years. And now this new one is the strategic social organizing political track that I'm setting forth on with great steam and fanfare. And I hope to enlist as many of you as possible to help guide me and guide us on our way as we attempt to get this done, to really turn a page. We've been on the same page for so long. Last week, I offered the viewpoint that in the last 50 years, we haven't really made any progress on our knowledge of the Sasquatch species. But really, when I thought about it, last week I said, we now know a lot more about their structures and what constitutes a likely Sasquatch structure, and we know a lot more about their proximity to us. But what I forgot to say is that we also know now, we've learned that it is perfectly possible to communicate with them, with our local Sasquatch group, wherever we happen to be, but that this communication is destined or doomed or privileged, however you want to look at it, to be indirect. We can't, in almost all cases, we cannot just directly interact with them. They seem to have a hardwired style of interaction that means that there has to be mediation, whether it's through objects, through the mediation of distance or trees or, obstacles that they can be behind. So it's not a direct sort of thing. So those are the three pillars, in my view, of how we've made progress since the Patterson film. We know that they build structures. We know that they are very close to us physically, in some sense, uncomfortably close from the standpoint of many people. But from the standpoint of others, like me and like probably most of you, exhilaratingly close, startlingly close, and wonderfully close. And it is quite possible to communicate with them. Let's see. Who has some questions or comments or contributions here? Don't hold back. We know about their behavior. Yes, that's true. A good point, Callie Dan. We know about their behavior, and I would suggest that most of what we know about their behavior has been gleaned from habituation sites, where because before that, before the awareness and the recognition of what happens at habituation sites, the kinds of overtures that the local Sasquatch group makes to the residents of habituation sites, we knew what it was like to come upon them in the wilderness, far from human habitation. They would throw things at us. They would scream at us. They would make whooping sounds, sometimes bluff charge. We've known that for a long, long time. And it's a kind of a little array of experiences that people have way out in the middle of nowhere that never seems to progress past the few aspects or elements that I just mentioned. They'll wood knock, they'll maintain a distance of 150 feet or more usually. And aside from the bluff charges and the tree pushes, intimidation behavior, they'll really not go past that. So we haven't learned a whole lot more about their behavior. I mean, perhaps since the Patterson film, that's been part of what we've known, but we've known that for now decades. Chris requests that we use the big print. Oh yeah. Yeah, if you can, put your questions in all caps so that I can distinguish them from people saying hi to each other and stuff. Rocks. Yes, they throw rocks and they throw pine cones. I can attest to that from personal experience. Don't forget to click the like button. Sure. I kind of never say, be sure to like and subscribe, because it feels like when someone says that to me, I'm less likely to like and subscribe, because I'm like, yeah, I know that. If I like it, I'm going to like it. And if I want to, I'll subscribe. And if you tell me to, then I'm going to resist. But maybe I'm peculiar in that way. Yes, sure. If you like the channel, if you like the show, like and subscribe. If you'd like to help me have more time and energy to devote to this project, then contribute to the GoFundMe campaign. Even $5 would be tremendous. Somebody contributed $5 yesterday, and I'm thrilled. It's, because that shows that they don't have a lot of money and that they're willing to help, even though they don't have a lot of money. I've done that when I've been for other people's projects, when I've been in a bad situation, and I totally appreciate it. I shared already, says Lady in the Woods, because our heart's in the right place. Well, isn't that nice? Yes. I don't know what, perhaps you're responding to each other and I'm not going to be able to follow the conversation. Where is our guest? She had a flat tire on the way to back home today, so she's running behind. You know, all right, I will just go out on a tangent. There's many aspects of this new effort that we could discuss. Somebody raised one the other day with me, which is a guy named Brent Dill. And he said, you know, if you spread awareness all throughout the neighborhoods where, for instance, you research this species, and if others spread awareness throughout the local areas where they research, it's going to make researching a whole lot more difficult because, of course, others are going to want to try to make contact with and research, look into their local Sasquatch group, and that's going to kind of step on your toes. And I had to admit he was right. There are a lot of trade-offs involved in this big picture paradigm shift that I think we agree needs to take place. There are going to be casualties. You know, there will be idiots out there who will try to prank researchers by knocking on trees, and we will think that that's Sasquatch when it's not. You know, they'll make vocalizations for our recorders, and we'll have to try to distinguish between genuine vocalizations and idiot vocalizations. And Pamela Schutte, that must be related. She must be related to Luann and Gary. So, all right. So just I'll finish this thought, and then I'll look for more comments and questions. Oh, there's one from LM. Just a sec. So yes, it's going to come with pluses and minuses. This grand shift that I'm envisioning, and that I hope you'll help me with. The more we spread awareness, the more we will push toward the recognition by the official powers that be of the species and of the law enforcement system and of the judicial system. The sooner we will get to what is, after all, inevitable, which is a law that puts killing one of these creatures up on the level of human homicide. That's going to happen at one point. And I don't want it to happen in 55 years. I want it to happen in 18 months. So that's on the plus side. Also on the plus side is greater education in the public mind about how it is that Sasquatch might be behaving and what they can look out for, how we can know when we've strayed into what they consider to be their territory. And so the imperative of showing respect for their territorial sovereignty, and that we need to back out. You know, there's lots of things that will improve, that will be smoothed out through awareness. But also on the plus side will be people engaging with this indirect, long form conversation, communication through objects like Snow White Bigfoot with their local Sasquatch group. That's going to become a fabulous new cultural trend, I predict. And I want to hasten that trend because it's obvious that the Sasquatch people enjoy this kind of communication or they wouldn't engage in it. So why not allow both sides, both species of human beings, to revel in one another in the only way that it seems it's possible, which is this indirect, mediated communication. Why do you think the government is covering this topic up? Oh, J-Mac. Oh, J-Mac. So many reasons. Have I experienced violent creatures? Okay, hang on now. I'm going to take this and then go back to LM. Why? That is a huge topic. In a nutshell, let's see. You can list reasons too here in the comments, but I would say that, remember the spotted owl in the, what was it, the 1980s or something? In the Northwest, this little species of owl was on the endangered species list, and it basically ground the timber industry to a halt. and they were protracted legal battles, and I forget whatever came out of it, but it was a huge deal. And if the spotted owl was a huge deal, Sasquatch and the recognition of the species, and the more importantly, the recognition of the fact that it's an indigenous people, is going to make the spotted owl look like a tiny footnote. So that's one thing, is that timber industry will be threatened, the mining industries, oil, oil industry, drilling, many other things I'm not thinking of right now. Think also of the fact that if it comes to be known that even one person was definitely taken away and never to return, taken by a Sasquatch, then all the people who have lost children and adult loved ones to disappearance in the forest, in national parks, in state forests, state parks, all of those people will then be encouraged or will have the impetus to sue, saying that you didn't tell us about the threat that is out there in the woods. And although we don't know why my daughter was taken away, was killed, and we found her remains, or we never found her, the fact that you didn't warn us created a dangerous situation. And some of these lawsuits will be successful and some won't, depending on the situation specifically. But there'll just be a tsunami of these kind of things. That's another thing that the federal government wants to put a clamp on. And last, I'll just mention is the basic vested interest of any government to maintain the status quo and not to upset the apple cart, not to unleash chaos or uncertainty, unrest, panic, any of those kinds of things. They want to keep control and order. I mean, China is like the pinnacle of keeping order, but all governments want to keep order. That's a huge part of it. Let me go back up to LM. Could you repeat your question so I don't need to go back up and find it? What did I miss? Same reasons they deny UFOs. Well, very likely, very likely. If anyone's read Communion by Whitley Strieber or Bud Hopkins's books on alien abductions, you know that those are some of the most deeply unsettling books that you could ever read. Communion was a terrible movie, but it's a great book. Even though I love Christopher Walken, it was a terrible movie. Brown Dwarf says Pete. All right, now questions are in caps. Bob Gimlin is scheduled for Creature Weekend in October at Salt Lake State Forest. Are you interested? Interested in what? In the fact that he's scheduled there? It's a little bit. Have you noticed any pattern in vocalizations? Gosh, no. I mean, the ones that I recorded a few days ago are completely different from the howl that I recorded on July 12th. There's all sorts of vocalizations. I mean, I don't even know how to. And then there's the more intimate ones that, for instance, Buddy Britt recorded, and in the Paris, Texas situation that MK Davis posted many videos about in 2013. You should look that up. Why do you think the government? Okay, we got that one. Have you noticed any pattern? Okay. Where are we? L, the national parks. Yes. Yes, the national parks. Gary Johnson says, I think it might be a cover-up of portals. They don't want us to gain knowledge. Well, what do I know? Anything is possible. They could travel between dimensions through portals. They could be the Nephilim from the Bible. Personally, I highly doubt it. Personally, I go for the naturalistic explanation. Since we don't know of any other organisms that travel between dimensions on our Earth, I would assume that these, like us, like other mammals, like other primates, are bound by natural physical laws. But again, I don't know. Have you heard of any train crew seeing one? Well, many sightings come from trains down through history. That's a long train of stories, if you will. Portals. My take on Dr. Matthew Johnson. I'm going to be diplomatic. I have no reason to be swayed by his reports of what he's been able to do vis-a-vis or what he's been able to find out about. And in terms of the other planet and the main teacher that he says he works with, I don't. It doesn't resonate with my experience researching. Let me just say that. Yes, I do think LM. Thank you. I do think they've always been living in close proximity to us. I mean, some people have theories that there's some kind of transformation going on, or some sort of rising high water mark of them revealing themselves to us. I have no reason to think that. I just think we haven't been aware of their proximity before now, and that more and more researchers have been shocked and delighted, like I have, to find not just structures nearby, which could have been attributed to human beings, but proof that those structures are likely not of human origin, because audio recordings capture knocks and vocals at 3:30 in the morning, at 2:15 in the morning, et cetera, et cetera. It's not likely to be produced by people. So I think that it's a marvelous thing that they hang out so close to us. There's probably a sort of a stratification in their society of those who wish to be close to us and those who would prefer to be 100 miles from the nearest person. But all we can hope to accomplish, or to build a bridge toward, is the ones who like to be close to us, because they mirror our own feeling of kinship and kind of magnetism toward the counterpart human, shall we say. Let's see. Do you think they've always been? Yes, I do. Take on Dr. Matthew Johnson. I was diplomatic. Salt pork. Do you want to go? Well, I'm very poor. I can't afford to pay for travel. If any conference or what's another kind of thing besides conference? If any Sasquatch conference or I can't think of a synonym, wants me to contribute, I'd be glad if they can pay my way and give me a little bit of for a rental car if I'm needed, or food. But I'm not able to fly around the country. But I've been to a couple. I've been to Alex Munoz's one down in Georgia, 2012, and then I was with Johnny Manson, invited by Johnny Manson to the conference, the Sasquatch Summit in 2016. And both times I had a blast. It was wonderful meeting all sorts of people that I've been in touch with online. Patrick McGuire, there is some reason they are keeping them secret outside of lumber, and I don't believe in the WEO. In the woo, perhaps you mean? Yeah, well, I think there are reasons that we are not aware of, and then there are those reasons that three of which I enumerated that we can readily imagine would be their reasons. As I said last week, I'm 95% sure that they at least know that Sasquatch exists, and that if that's all we can extract from them, then that would be a great victory for them to concede that and begin the process of putting the citizens of the United States and Canada on that new playing field. We deserve that. This is bull crap to be kept in the dark like this. But I'm 100% sure they know that they exist. I'm 95% sure that they know not only that they exist, but a bunch more about them. Some of which we also know, but some of which we may not know. And so either way, whether we can get them to divulge what they know that we may not know, or just to get them to acknowledge the existence of the species, either way, it's abundantly worth doing, no matter how uphill a climb it may be for us. Todd Standing. Well, I love the fact that Todd Standing is pushing his government up in Alberta. His case didn't go well in the first iteration, and that's to be expected. You know, our own cases, when we bring them, our freedom of information requests and our appeals and our court cases and our appearances before the media, all of us that are going to be doing that in this mushrooming group that will form over the next few months. How did that sentence start? I love the fact that Todd, that all of these cases are going to face roadblocks, are going to come up against roadblocks. And that's as to be expected, but Todd is a tenacious fighter for recognition of the species. And that's what I'd like to emphasize in my stance on Todd Standing. Johnson is a con. Well, there's that viewpoint. Any more thoughts on the electromagnetic, where do you go? Electromagnetic connection in Sasquatch? Yeah, I think they have an electromagnetic capacity to them. I don't know how they do it. It's probably related to the way that certain people have an electromagnetic capacity. They're called electric people. And, you've probably heard about these folks who, for whatever reason, especially when they get into an emotionally excited frame of mind, or their central nervous system gets exercised, they can cause light bulbs to shatter, or they can cause street lights to turn out when they walk underneath them, and then when they keep walking, the street light comes back on. Or they can't wear watches, and cell phones always are disrupted by them. They have some ability to both store and deliver an electromagnetic charge, and some of them, I've found out through research, can actually begin to control it, consciously, intentionally. And this seems to be what Sasquatch can do. And it doesn't seem to be infrasound, because infrasound doesn't cause electronics to break or batteries to drain or the hairs in the back of our neck to stand up or our hands. It doesn't cause, it can cause the same kinds of symptoms of being zapped that many people experience out in the field. Both forms of vibration, electromagnetic and infrasound, can cause nausea, disorientation, weakness, a sense of dread, or anxiety or terror. But since the electromagnetic explanation also can account for all sorts of other of these phenomena associated with Sasquatch, it seems more prudent to me, in terms of theoretically, to just try to have a unified explanation under the heading of electromagnetism until we know better. I'm trying to prove that this summer. I have a wonderful little unit that can take an electromagnetic reading, EMF reading every 12 seconds all night long for several nights in a row. And then you can download the data onto your laptop and come up with a graph. And so I'm leaving this unit out there with my recorder, hoping to get an approach and see a spike in the electromagnetic readout. But so far, I've tried a lot. And so far, I've gotten knocks and vocals, but none has come close enough to register in the EMF meter, if indeed they would register. Gary Johnson, I know it holds true because I came across one with certain things looking down at me. I'm not sure what you mean by that. certain things looking down at me. What got you into researching Sasquatch and its signs in the forest? Well, like many people, it was the Patterson film originally when I was, I think, 10 or 11. But really, it's just been in the last few years that I've realized that how close they are to us, and realized, thanks in part to Rio's groundbreaking work, Nathan Rio, just what to look for and how to follow structures and how to find more elaborate structures. And I mean, he, like I, and like a handful of others, have been, many of whom I've interviewed on some of my podcast, the Nearness of You podcast, but others too that I'm hoping to interview on the podcast have found the same startling evidence of them close to humans. So, you know, I was just into it like most people in the beginning, going on BFRO expeditions and such like that. But really, it's been an upward, a steep learning curve, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, where I feel like I'm getting more to the nub of the issue. I was told Bigfoot real name through Mindspeak. What is that real name, Gary? Can you tell us? If you don't feel comfortable, then don't tell us. Electromagnetic, you're right, Michael. It's in their DNA gene. I don't know if electromagnetism is in there. Well, I mean, to the extent that DNA creates the kind of organism that Sasquatch is, and that organism is capable of somehow channeling electromagnetic energy, then yes, DNA is behind everything that we are, really. Well, it seems that all good things are worth waiting for, aren't they? So if we don't hear from Claudia in the next couple minutes, and if we don't get a conversation going here, I'm going to have to leave off. Do you think they understand our language? I don't know that they understand our language, but I do think that they understand our thoughts, and that we can speak to them in English. And often, probably not always, but often they can understand that, not literally through the vocabulary and grammar, but through our thoughts. And I mean, I didn't used to believe this before I had certain experiences in East Texas, which I've written about in my recent book, Mind Speak. And then in researching other people's experiences of Mind Speak, I've become more and more convinced that it's a real thing. So, you know, people say, why are you talking to them in English when they see my videos? And I don't often answer that question, because just to say, well, telepathy, you know, makes me sound like a Looney Tune. But when you look into it and spend a lot of time rigorously pursuing it, I think we may have Claudia. Oh, yeah, the stream. Then it gets more and more substantial the more you look into it, is what I'm saying. Hello.
Hello there.
Oh my goodness, this is great. This is wonderful.
I
All
was
right.
gonna
So
go into the woods, but I decided just to go those 7 minutes and fly home.
yeah, well,
So,
we've been able to fill the time quite easily here.
oh great.
Let me take the banner off for questions now, and near the end we will open it back up to questions. Once you've had a chance to hear from Claudia, you'll have a lot of questions for her, I'm sure. So, all right. Well, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, you guys, that I'm running late as
I'm
usual.
I'm
A
sorry
few
you had a
times.
flat tire. That's a terrible experience. Some of my
That's
worst
okay.
experiences have been flat tires.
That's fine. No, no worries. Luckily, I was on the freeway going pretty fast, but I was okay.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
lucky. That's very lucky. All right. Well, my friend, you left off last week, before we were accosted by technological difficulties, with the experience you had with your two daughters.
Right.
Now, perhaps you could move into the next chapter, which is when you had that woman come out from the Fish and Game, was it?
Yes, the whole fishing game. So I decided to have the courage to prepare myself and call a fishing game. And one thing that I noticed that I took notes about was I don't even know who to call because there's no Sasquatch hotline. Like, if you see a Sasquatch, you call fishing game. So I had to decide if do I call 911, fishing game, the Forest Service, who handles this type of a call. Well, I just decided to call the non-emergency 911 call and just said, look, I'll take a drug test, a psych evaluation, whatever you need. I know this is awkward, but I did run into Sasquatch with my daughters, and we have like footage, we have like footprints, and you have eyewitnesses that are able to like speak and tell you what I would like to share with the fishing game. So right away, like on the phone, it's like silent, like hello, hello, like she didn't even know how to respond to that, and she said, okay, so I'm not sure who to direct you to, but somebody will call you soon, and I'll find out who can help you, and make sure you answer your cell phone. I said, okay, no problem. Within 3 minutes, like my cell phone rang, and it was the fishing game. And she was very kind, very professional, very polite. And I want to just like say to people that I don't have a problem with fishing game at all because they're doing their job. They're being directed by someone higher than like their boss, basically. So she called me right away and said, I'm on my way to your home. Like, tell me what you encountered. And I said, well, why don't I tell you when you get here? So within 5 minutes, it's a
Yeah.
long story, to make
Right.
my story even longer. So basically, she came very professional in her uniform. I shook her hand, and I told her exactly what I told you guys about our encounter. And she wanted to see the footage very desperately. So I showed her the footage, and she wanted to see it like over and over again, like 7 times. And right away, she like pointed at his face. Is that his face? Is that his ears? Yes, yes, yes. So she said, look, I'm not alone here. I have my supervisor on the other end, and I'll be texting him, and he's going to help you understand what you saw. I said, perfect. So I was kind of curious to see what the next step would be.
Yeah.
So sure enough, she texts him. We kind of sit around and wait for his response. And she looked at her cell phone, and she looked at me. She took a sigh, and she said, sorry you saw a bear. And I said, no, I'm sorry, you're misdirected. I didn't see a bear. It was a Sasquatch. There was 3 of them, and I'm like, if it was a bear, I could understand, but there was 3 of them, and 2 of them ran bipedally, and they have a face of a man. It's not a snout. It doesn't have ears. Has shoulders, and I said, I know what I'm doing. And after we went back and forth, she's trying to like convince me that it was a bear. I was like, look, you and I have morals. We have all jobs to do. I get it. I have to feed my family too. But I said, I don't know how people sleep at night telling people that you saw a bear when it wasn't a bear. And I said, I'll take this to the next level because I was hurt. I felt like belittled. I felt stupid. I felt all those bad feelings when someone doesn't believe you, like the consequences you get when you speak your truth, basically. And that night I cried a lot, and I thought, like, I shouldn't feel ashamed. I know what I saw. I'm not crazy. I've offered a drug test, psych evaluation, whatever they want, and they still don't believe me. So a couple nights after that, I was listening to Sasquatch Chronicles alone at home, and my daughters were gone, and I heard Todd talking about the court case. Now, for years, I've always wanted to take this to the next
Todd
level.
Standing.
Outstanding, yes.
Yeah.
I heard about his passion about taking this to the next level and going to the courts and saying, look, we're not all crazy here. I mean, are you saying there's thousands of like people that are delusional or liars or hoaxers? No, they are real and people are getting hurt. I'm not saying they're all bad, the Sasquatch creatures. I believe that a lot of them are good and some of them are really bad. It just depends. But that day I really thought I was going to die just because his expression wasn't very happy to see us. I had no idea at that moment that there was more than one around us, even though you could hear bipedal footsteps on the video. It wasn't us walking around, so there was more than 3, I believe. And it's interesting because now that I talk to my daughters, I was telling her, I saw this big one by the V of the tree. My daughter goes, no, Mom, I was looking on the bottom of the tree. And then my other daughter said, no, Mom, I'm looking on the left side of the tree. We were all looking at 3 different creatures at the same time. And we just kind of piece that back together again.
Wow, that's interesting.
It is interesting. And like I feel that my daughter's innocence of being a child was kind of robbed that day because my little one said, Mom, like you lie to us. And I'm like, about what? And she said, well, you said monsters aren't real. And they are.
Wow.
And I said, oh, well,
How old was she? How old was she then?
she was 11 at the time. So
Okay.
11 and 14. Those
Yeah.
now they're older, of course. And now they're able to express more about that, and Um, at first, you could see that they were very, very scared. Like they wouldn't go to my car at night if they left their like textbooks in my car after school. I'd have to go and get them out for them. So there's a lot of repercussions that happens when you are told as a child that these things don't exist. So to fast forward, I messaged Todd Standing, just so you guys know, you guys may have an opinion on him, but I saw a different side of Todd that a lot of people don't see. I was very blessed to see that side of him. I told him my story and I said, look, like I want to take this to the next level. That's not okay what happened. And I believe that people should have a choice to go into the woods knowing what's really out there. We know there's bears, mountain lions, snakes that can hurt us. People can hurt us, but we should know. I think we're sane enough, most of the population, to understand that we can take what you guys are hiding from us. Don't understand why you're hiding it. You know, I think we have the right to know. But he said, you know what, Claudia, I'll fly out to you and I'll come and help you do like the paperwork for the courts. So we did that, and he came on his own dime. His wife was a high risk pregnancy at the time. And, you know, he took time away from his family. He on his own dime. He paid for the court cost fees, which is almost $2,000 just to file alone. And we spent 3 days, day and night, countless hours of no sleep. Just, it's not easy writing something for the states. You have to write penal codes. You have to write history of why. It's basically my complaint to the courts of why I'm suing them. I'm not suing for money, as I told people. And 99% of the public thinks we're crazy because most people aren't really aware of what's really in the woods because they have their 9-to-5 jobs in big buildings. And especially in Los Angeles, you don't hear a lot about Sasquatch, but one thing I do travel, and I noticed that in Washington, Oregon, those parts of the states, it's very okay to talk about Sasquatch. You don't look down upon here like in Los Angeles. So region has a lot to do with everything, a lot, in my opinion. Now, this is all my opinion, which means nothing. I'm not a professional, and I don't believe anybody is, but we're all learning from people's experiences. So I've been very blessed that ever since I filed for the court case, I have a lot of people message me on Messenger saying, look, like my name is so-and-so, I have 20 acres, they're all over my property, can you help me? Thank you for speaking out. I have a lot of hate mail too, and that's fine, it doesn't bother me, because I know in my heart what I saw. I know what my goal is, and I want to say, Chris, thank you for working with us because we need you guys to help us. We can't do this alone.
Yeah.
Actually, it's very expensive. So whatever Chris has going on as far, I don't like to ask for money. This is not about money for me, but we can do this on our own. The DNA testing is $2,000 each time we test, you know, in labs and stuff. So it's not a cheap thing. When I filed for the court case, I had a court date already pending. I had the judge. I had everything going. And a man contacted Todd. He's an attorney. His name was Bobby Garcia. He's from Texas, and he said, I'll take your case. I'll do it pro bono. I have to get permission to represent her in the state of California. I need her to stop her case because we have a lot of work to do. If she goes in with what she has, they're going to eat her alive in court. And I want to win. You know, it's like I'm not doing this for like news, like my 5 minute of fame or whatever. I want to change things, you know. So I kept telling Todd, I'm not really sure because why isn't he contacting me? Why is he going to you, Todd? It's a problem for me. And he kept saying, well, because I'm kind of like your colleague, and Todd and I have an agreement that we're a team and we're going to do this together. And so he was talking to him, and Todd finally said, please just stop the court case. Let's take a chance on this guy helping us because we could benefit. We need an attorney, basically. But I was willing to go in front of the judge and a jury and say, look, I'll represent myself. This is what happened. This is my story. And there's the whole courtroom and a lot of people that are supporting me because they've also seen them. So it's not just us, if that makes sense. So to make my long story longer, I stopped the court case, which I really felt like I shouldn't. But then there's a part of me that I'm like, I need as much help as I can get as far as legal advice.
And you didn't want to throw away some practical advice like that.
Right. So, and then the day that I stopped the court case, I stopped it without prejudice, which means I could stop it and then I could refile it when I'm ready, basically, is what that
They
means.
wouldn't hold it against you or
Right.
use it to judge you or anything.
Right. There's no like consequences to stopping it. I need more time, which I actually did because now I have either like 10 witnesses on that trail. I did post like something saying if anybody's encountered anything on this trail, please contact me. I do have PhDs that will represent me and on my behalf. I've got witnesses on that trail. I've got deputy sheriffs that went on that trail on a call. So I have DNA
I
now.
didn't know about that. That's great. What
Yeah,
what did
like
the deputy
911, because
sheriff?
there was
What
a
are they
man that was
willing
trying
to
to.
testify
Sorry.
to?
There was a man that was trying to break into my house, and I have cameras all over my house. And I called the police. The girls and I were alone, and he came flying to our house to help us. And he saw my cast, like the Bigfoot cast that I've casted, and he was just kind of talking to me to kind of calm us down. The guy's gone. We're safe. But he was like, "What is that over there?" And I told him, I said, "Look, I this is what happened. This is our story. The three of us were together, my daughters and I." And we started telling him, and he said, "You know, I went on a call on that trail on a house. It was an elderly woman who saw one peeking through her window like a
Uh,
gorilla, and we weren't sure what to tell her. We didn't know if she was delusional. We didn't know how to help her, but we didn't see anything, you know, and we left not knowing what she was talking about. And now that I hear your story, it's making sense. Like the puzzle's
wow.
kind of coming." And I said, "Well,
Would he
you know,
be willing? Was he going to testify in court?
he said, I'll testify for you, but you have to force me to talk because I don't want to
Ah,
lose my job." And I said, "I'll force you.
oh,
You'll have a subpoena coming your
subpoena him.
way,
Yeah.
you know?" So,
Wow.
yeah, it was fun. He was very nice, and so I'm grateful for those people. So for sure, right now I do have DNA being tested out of the country. I have people that have sent me here from all over the United States, um, because I want, if the courts say to me, "Look, like, I want to be able to have a rebuttal on everything they try to throw at me." Well,
Hmm.
you don't have hair in other states. Oh, but I do. You know, I
Yeah.
want to have everything ready. So, um, you know, if you're on trial for murder, and I have witnesses, I have DNA, I have video evidence, you really are gonna probably go to jail because you probably murdered someone, not because, you know, what else can I prove my point that these
Right.
things are real? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
so, yeah. So I'm waiting for that to come
So
back.
what's the current state of affairs here?
Well, right now, money. We're waiting for some money because I'm still looking for an attorney that will like take my case, possibly pro bono. So I
So
have to pay.
what happened with Mr. Garcia?
Mr. Garcia, I called him and he was very nice to me. He said, "Thank you for stopping the court case." You know, the legal wheels do turn, Claudia, but they turn very slowly. You have to be patient with me. And I'm like, I get it. How patient do I have to be? How long? You know, like, so I've
Yeah.
been doing everything he was telling me to do. And I was like, okay, 6 months later, you really don't hear from him. I'm like, can I see the paperwork you submitted to the state of California to represent me in the state of California? And then I was told, well, I have to have an office in California in your like county because I have to be able to basically have an office for you to walk into. So I have to have all that aligned, which costs money. He goes, I can't show you my paperwork. And then those alarm bells went off on my head thinking, this guy isn't going to help me. This was all like, this is bad. Like, I'm really upset. So
Mm-hmm.
after I talked to Todd, Todd called him and said, "Look, we have been patient with you. We've been waiting. Nothing is happening on your end. You know, we get you're busy, but come on now." Like, and he said basically, "I'm not going to be pressured. I'm not going to be bullied." And I'm thinking, like, pressured? You don't even know what pressure is. We haven't even started the court case. What are you talking about, pressure?
Oh
So
my
I guess
goodness.
they got into like a little fight, and he said, "I'm not going to represent." I changed my mind. I'm like, oh, you know, but it was a good thing that he did because now I have more evidence, and now I'm
Well, yeah,
more educated.
you've definitely not wasted the time you've had to take for this.
Right. I've been busy, busy, busy every
Yeah,
day.
well, it's
Just
gonna only be better when you finally get everything your ducks in a row, you know.
right. So,
And
and my health hasn't been the best.
all the witnesses and backup backup testimony and evidence that you've gathered in just your small area there, on the trail and in California, but especially in your local area, is the same kind of thing that we're all, each one of the 100, 200, 300 of us that are going to be out doing what you did and what Todd is doing, a version of it, will be able to gather in our local neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So, and then when we have 100 or more people doing what you're doing and going in on the news shows and going to court and holding press conferences and releasing press releases and writing articles in the paper and all this kind of stuff, it's going to be a great big wave of awareness, and then we may things will happen that we don't expect, both bad and good.
Right.
And on the good side, I'm hoping that some insiders in Fish and Game or whatever agency will surreptitiously contact us with tips. Like if they have a conscience, for instance, if any of them have a conscience,
Exactly my point.
they might contact us under the table with um, like whistleblowers with some tips, even small tips like what what kind of code names the government uses for this species or for aspects of their operation in terms of this species. And we can use those code names as leverage when we submit our freedom of information requests. And you sued. That's one approach.
Hmm.
I'm going to advocate for a lot of people to use also the freedom of information request approach because that doesn't cost any money. And when that gets denied, you can appeal it and go to court. And it's not quite as adversarial as what you and Todd are doing. I mean, you and Todd may well, and I pray you are, be successful. Um, but the freedom of information is just kind of saying, well, can we have papers, documents about this? No. Well, can
Why
we
not?
ask again in a different form? Why not? This. And now we have more information that we've found out about. And there may be a better chance when you're not suing. But we're all just starting out. We're all just babes in the woods about this, and we're going to try to uh, gather information and tactics and best practices along the way as we move.
Right. Um, I the Freedom of Information Act. I like Dave Paulides. He's been denied it, and
Yeah,
that just makes me even fight even harder because why? This is
right.
our right as citizens. We pay
I
our
know
taxes.
exactly.
Oh no, no, no! Like,
Well, you're a
so
pioneer. You're going to go down in history as one of the pioneers of this whole thing that brings the fact of our deserving to know, our right to know, to the forefront. And so I'm very glad that you exist.
oh, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. I need that because there's days where I like cry and say,
I'm,
"Why
no,
am I
I'm
doing
sure.
this?" Like, it's hard. It's hard.
Every revolutionary and every revolution has a lot of bad days, a
Yeah, of
lot of
course.
cloudy, rainy days.
But I'm never gonna quit as long
There
as
you
I'm
go.
still alive and talking. And
Yep.
I'm very careful, by the way. When I drive, I make sure I'm not being followed. I'm very, very. I try to act. I act dumb at times, but I'm really not.
Have you ever
I,
seen the
I
movie? Have you ever seen the movie Silkwood?
no, but I will
Well,
watch it.
don't watch it.
Oh,
The
okay,
final scene, you don't want the final scene in your memory banks. And any of our
okay.
viewers who've seen Silkwood know what I mean.
Yeah, for
Let's
sure.
open it up to questions at this point.
Okay.
For Claudia Ackley, let us see here.
Throw some hard questions at me, you guys. I gotta practice.
It says your sound is very low. I think Ed
Oh, is
said,
it?
Ed,
Is that
maybe just
better?
sit closer. Yeah,
Is that better?
better for
Testing
me.
1, 2, 3. Is that
Better
better?
for me.
I'll wait for her to respond or him.
You know what? When I post this, I will edit it and raise your sound for you. So, because we only
Thank
have
you.
73 people watching, and so when the thousands of extra people watch, they'll have a good sound.
Okay.
All right. My volume is so high, Chris blares and can barely hear Claudia.
Oh no!
That's too bad.
I even got a mic, you guys.
She went
Trying to
out.
make this volume work.
Yeah, she went to Best Buy and bought
I
that.
did. I do want to say one thing. I want you guys to know that a lot of people are mad at me in the where they feel that the Forest Friends are good. And I honestly can say there was no aggression with my daughters and I. They were very, very kind. They were very curious of us. Um, they are very scary looking. I'm not going to lie, but I'm
Uh
doing
oh,
this for them.
your mic just cut
Is that
out.
better? Testing 1, 2, 3. We just raised the volume up on the mic.
Yeah, that's better.
I have my helper here, Mr. Brown.
Speaking of Brown Dwarf says, I don't feel the need to bring awareness to government because they already know. Yes, I agree. I agree with you on that.
Well, it's time the government speaks
To,
out to our
to our
American citizens.
population.
Yeah, we need to know. Like, people need to know. The government is very much aware of these creatures. So, Brown Dwarf, I'm sorry I could not stop to see you. We had some car issues on the way to up north. I do want to see you soon, though, for sure. Anybody have any questions?
I'm looking. I have never filed a FOIA. No. but it's easy to do. You can you can see my video about that. The number one, the first video in the series, the Sasquatch and Civic Duty series. It's very easy to do. There are form letters you can just fill in, send it in.
If you guys need help, please message me and I will help you through it. I might take a few days to get to you, but I will help with anybody who needs help. I will fly down to you. I will drive down to you to help you with whatever needs to be done.
With no money?
With no money, I'll get there.
What's
Just
your contact information?
you can find me on Facebook and message me on Messenger, and I'm probably going to get another cell phone just for this. Have two cell phones.
Yeah.
So people can I can give that number out for Sasquatch Hotline. I'm also starting the national PTSD groups throughout the United States. The first one is going to be in August, free to the public. Anybody who needs to talk about any issues that have you've seen that you can't talk to anybody about, we're going to start in Colorado. Mr. Mark Owens is going to be the group leader, and I'm going to fly down there on the first meeting and help people with whatever it is that you need to talk to someone about. There will be no judgment, no putting anybody down. It's just a safe place for someone to come and tell their story without being laughed at or ridiculed. Free to the public. We're starting in Colorado in the middle, kind of late of August. We don't have the date set up yet, but
And then will it gradually spread across the country?
yes, it's gonna go to the next. It'll probably be my hometown, Los Angeles, part two, meeting number two.
The second
So
chapter.
chapter, yeah.
Um,
So
Brian McSurdy says, Claudia, do you have any video from your research? And I put up in the edited version of last week's show, I put up your video with Bigfoot Tony's and a little of
oh
his
yeah,
analysis. So that was a great video. So I have that embedded in in last week's show.
okay. There
Um,
is a couple one. It's called Sapphireus. If you put my name, Claudia Ackley, on YouTube, you can see some of my interviews, some of my haters as well. But there is, her name is, well, she goes under Sapphireus. Her name is Amanda. You probably know Amanda, Chris. I introduced you to her. She helps Todd and I with the
oh yeah,
background
yeah,
of,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, she's the one that put that video together for me. And you could see, like, some people see the video, they're like, we don't see anything. So she kind of like highlights where he's sitting. He was 30 feet up on a tree perch, the male alpha, and the two of them are on the bottom of the tree. And you could see like my interviews and more footage from that day that my daughters took. I did not take that video. And I'm proud of my 14-year-old for videotaping that moment of
Oh,
fear.
I'll say that was really lucky
Wow.
that you did that.
I'm glad I
Oh,
bought her that iPhone now. I'm like, that was a good call on mom's part.
that's
So,
right. That's right.
yeah, for sure.
Well, if anybody out there was unable to hear Claudia during the long portion of her story, and you want to hear her, tomorrow the episode will be posted, and I'll have boosted her volume, so you can go back
Thank you.
and watch that. Um, so I think we're going to wrap it up. It's about an hour now, and I very much anything more that you want to add that you've that
Um, I'm
rattling
just
around in
honored.
your head.
Chris, you've been like someone who's taught me before I had the encounter with my daughters. And you and I have been friends for a lot of years on Facebook. And thank you for working with us. Thank you for making this world a better place. My advice to all of you is if you've had an encounter, report it to your fishing game, even if you don't have video footage like you and like the girls and I did. Speak your truth. Don't let anybody laugh. If they laugh at you, who cares? Like, hold your head up high. It doesn't matter because you and your heart know what you've seen. You know what you're experiencing. And I believe these creatures do need some kind of protection. We're all over their woods, all over their home. There is a video that was very compelling to me of one, they were loggers and they picked up like a tree and threw it like God knows how far, a big like stump of a tree. And I feel that they're saying, hey, stop cutting our home down. I
Yeah.
feel so for sure. When Todd has his what do you call him? Like when he gets people to come out, his excursions. Please try to go to it because the money that goes to that will go to our court case, and that's where I'm trying to raise money for that for him. I don't want to ask for money because for me it's not about money, but this is very costly. I'm a single mom. I do struggle a lot, but I feel that God always finds ways to help me, no matter what. He's always there, like saying, "I'll help you with this." Somehow it works. So we'll see. If you do want to file something in your state, I've had people contact me saying they want to do what I'm doing in their state. I will fly down there, help them with the paperwork. I know the steps now, legal steps of what to do. When I went to court the first time, like I said, I told the clerk, like, you go and wait in line for the forms, and they didn't even know like what form to give me because nobody's ever done it. They're like, Martha, is it form 777 or 333? And I had like supervisors throwing like forms at me, not even knowing like where, what or who.
Right.
It's kind of fun.
Well,
It's been an
it, you,
adventure.
I would ask that you give them all your wonderful advice and help, and also recommend that they join the Sasquatch on Civic Duty Facebook group so that we can have as many people working with you and with us and
Okay.
as we can, and we can focus like a laser beam. We can focus this effort,
Right.
and it's going to
You,
take us a while to find our footing. You've been at this a while. I'm just starting out, and
I'll help you
so
through it.
you help me through it, and then we'll help each other as I learn more.
Okay, that sounds great.
All right, my
One
friend.
thing I wanted to
Yes.
say that, God does put things in my path accidentally. Just really quick, I won't make this long, but there's a gentleman that contacted me telling me, look, they're on my property. I have a koi pond, and I want to let you know I first knew about them because I smelt them, and the smell was penetrating through my house.
Mm.
And then I started telling him, wow, that's amazing. Like, what state are you from? And he goes, well, no, I live right down the trail where you and your daughters encountered them. They're here at my house. So I became very good close friends. Last night they called me at 10 o'clock at night. They said, Claudia, they're here now, and the alpha's here. We could hear him
Oh my
stomping
God.
and breaking, and he's not happy. So I flew down there, and it was the most craziest night. Now this person is a celebrity, and I didn't even know that. When I got there, I'm like, wow, like, so it is kind of, and he will testify for me.
Oh, you're kidding. That's great.
Yeah, and
That's so great.
the trail ends at his house. So the trail that I was on, the trail ends, and his house is on that
I
corner.
can't believe that you've got Tom Hanks is going to testify for you.
Rob Lowe, what do you think?
Right.
And Rob Lowe.
I prefer Tom Hanks.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So,
Yeah.
so you guys will know when the court comes who he is. So
Yes,
he's
and you're
very,
not
very,
you're not at liberty to share that right now.
can't, not
That's
yet.
fine.
So
That's good. What was I going to say? Oh, I bet you'll be a frequent guest on this show, and we're going to
thank
really
you,
need your insight and your inspiration. And
thank you.
with that, I will let you go. Okay.
Okay,
All right. I really,
thank
really
you.
appreciate you joining us, and I'm glad I appreciate the stress you went through and speeding home after your flat tire.
So I love you guys a lot. Thank you for your love and support.
You're
And I will
welcome.
continue my quest.
Thank you for yours, and
Okay.
thank you everybody for joining us tonight.
Thanks.
Tune in again next Tuesday for episode number 3.
If I call 3 times a day, come and drive my blues away. When you come, be ready to play. Do your duty. If you want to have some luck, give your baby your last buck. Don't come quacking like a duck. Do your duty. I heard you said you didn't love me down at Mrs. Brown. I don't believe a word they say. She's the finest woman in town.